welcome back to Cook's Books. Someone recently suggested I bring back the anger and the palpable disdain I used to display on this channel circa 2014, and to do that by reviewing the books I hated most. And honestly, so welcome to a new series of me reviewing, slandering books that I hate. I'm not going to do a disclaimer because we're all grown-ups. We all know that my opinions aren't your opinions, and if I hate something, it's not a comment on your intelligence. We are intelligent people. This is BookTube, not Book Twitter. But I did despise these books, so let me tell you for why. The book I'm reviewing today is Everything Under by Daisy Johnson. Hey, do you remember when everyone was talking about this book, saying it was the height of experimental, a new, fresh voice, literary would never be the same? Hey, shortlisted for the Booker Prize for the debut novel. Hey, Daisy Johnson had it all. She had it all. Let's summarise the book. So it follows a young woman, Gretel, following a trail of clues. Yeah, we'll get onto that. To find her estranged mother. And on another timeline we follow a young person running away from home and the inevitable and unimaginative way those two stories collide. My first question is, what genre is this book? BookTube Unsolved. What genre is this book? Let's investigate. It is desperate to be literary fiction, and Johnson shows that by how keen she is to be an arse with the language she uses. She's so keen to show how clever she is, and she does it through language, so much so that she made her main character a linguist, just so she could have an excuse to kind of wax poetic about language in different forms. And like, we respect that hustle, we do. But she couldn't have engineered the situation if the main character's career was anything else. So let's be real, that's why she did that. It's not like she wanted to rep us linguists out here in the world. She's also, because she's a linguist, building this mythos of a secret language the main character and her mother shared, which, it's inherently flawed. If you just throw in a couple of neologisms into standard English discourse, that's not a language. A language has its own system of syntax. What you are doing is creating a dialect, and unbelievably, dialects do exist in the world before Everything Under. This book is mostly set around riverboating communities, which unbelievably have their own sets of dialects, as do all communities, especially the Romney communities, that this kind of feels like it's appropriating a little bit, but that's not what we're here to talk about. All communities in liminal spaces have dialects. You working as a lexicographer and knowing some words that aren't in the dictionary is not special. I can guarantee every person on this earth knows at least one word that is not standardised in their native language and therefore does not exist in the dictionary. Half the words I use are not in the dictionary because, as you can tell by this accent, I ain't an RP standard English speaker. It's infuriating. If you want a book that uses language in a really interesting way, that kind of captures the millennial ennui and depressive state, read The Inland Sea by Madeline Watts. The next genre it could possibly be is a thriller, because a missing person is the backbone of this novel. It's got flashbacks that are literally the only reason you even nominally care about the characters, and they kind of give you little hints as to what happened. So we have the mystery about the mother, but we've also got the suspense of the absolute tragedy porn, as once we found her, she continually tries to kill herself, and oh, will it work this time? Suspense. We've got these questions all the way through. Who's the mother? Who's the father? Who's the baby? Who's the receptionist? Who's this strange girl? Who's the sad girl? Who's this strange sad boy? There are all these disparate threads that at some point you were willing to weave together into something more impressive. They're twisted away from you at the very last minute with all the pizzazz of particularly underwhelming Victorian parlour trick. It's not clever, it's a waste of time. You aren't hinting one thing while laying the road for the other. You're beating us senseless, blindfolding us, putting us in the boot, and then pulling a Yui on a dual carriageway. Read anything instead. Is it horror? There's a monster in this book called the Bonak, but it's just the river being naughty, but it killed someone, what meant it creepy? Does it represent the dementia? Read the Annihilation series by Jeff Van Der Meer instead. It's magical realism because there is a prophecy. Not being funny, if my next door neighbour put out any sort of prophecy, I'd be like, alright Stuart, time to lay off the Merlot. Even if he started spouting Macbeth level portents of doom. Even if he put on a wig and called himself Agnes Nutter, I'd be like, oof, son, that's enough garden parties for you. What I wouldn't do is pack a little suitcase and run away from home at the age of 15. At the age of 15, I'd be straight on the group chat telling all my mates about my fucking psycho wino neighbour who just told me I was gonna kill me dad and fuck me ma, and we'd make a meme out of it. I wouldn't have got on riverboats with strangers. I wouldn't have begun a journey of gender performance in order to make myself safer, because that's a whole other thing we'll get into in a minute. Magical realism? Fabulism? It just didn't commit to anything. And it didn't even commit to its kind of experimental style, because it's about a character with dementia. It could do something really interesting with the texture of memory. Get that lecture about Kazuo Ishiguro out of my head. But it could just completely cut away to represent the neurological condition. But it doesn't. It just doesn't. Instead, it uses these really juvenile cliffhangers, and that's coming from someone who teaches narrative therapy to year 8s of developmental language disorder. And you know what? It doesn't even have the grace to give us them anytime soon. It's like 2-3 chapters down the line, after it's already introduced like 4 more cliffhangers, we get the resolution, so that we don't even know which resolution goes with which cliffhanger. It almost feels like it's supposed to be a very elegantly stacked tower of cards, and we end up with a muddled deck. Read Percey Jackson instead. But it's queer. Now, I'm not going to say, again, that this is a book written by an ally cis woman, because, you know, if Becky Albertalli has taught us anything, it's that the more middle class you are, and the higher your caucasity, the better you can mask queerness. Oh, that's so mean. But, like, did we really need someone who was not out in the community telling this story? I'm not here to force authors to write every single character's own voice as character, but I'm just saying, would it have killed you to use a sensitivity reader? As you talking queer, I'll state that I do not have any experience with transitioning or with gender performance beyond 12th Night or RuPaul's Drag Race, and this is the latter. Gender performance, not RuPaul's Drag Race. Let me tell you, no one is transgender because they think it will make them safer. Over 80% of transgender people have thought about committing suicide. Over 40% have tried. Hate crimes are increasing year on year, online and in real life. The average life expectancy of a trans person in the UK is 35 years old. Does this still sound like a quirky little detail you can add to a character with zero explanation of their identity or exploration of it? Does this seem still like a clever little hook to wrap your flimsy idea of a retelling around? That's what I thought. Stan Sarah Waters instead. On the theme of retelling, we all know one thing about Oedipus, right? Right? Freud gave us that much. But everyone in the street knows that one thing about Oedipus. I don't know how to say it. Obviously, this character that is a whole enough representation for all queer people is a heavy-handed amalgamation intended to other because of the topic it's retelling. Like, I'm just gonna say, the character who may or may not be trans has sex with her own mother. So the last thing these communities need to be conflated with is incest. It's like Disney queer-coding villains forever. It's like the trope of the creepy uncle at Christmas. Like, stop queer-coding and using these horrendous tropes. Stop conflating them, especially if you are not openly part of this community. What is so hard? What possessed you to set out to write a story of incest and be like, you know what? Let's not have it be the main character, my straight depressed woman. Let's get her to be a queer person. Let's make their transition so questionable that in everyone's mind this is still a 15-year-old girl topping her own mum. And what's weird to me is Fen by Daisy Johnson was recommended so thoroughly across BookTube by so many queer reviewers. Like, make it make sense. It just falls so predictably into the tragic queer trope, and if you need to see lesbians dying to recognise that trope, then there is something wrong with you, because like, this is about as tragic as it gets. I can only assume she's done it for a shock factor because it's taboo or scandalous, and it's exploitative of a minor. Did I mention this child was 15 years old? The safeguarding paperwork was writing itself from page 1. You know what, shoot me, I think retellings are pointless. I'm putting that out there. Unless you're trying to make them fun, in which case I'll allow it. You can take your Hagseed, you can take your Cersei, and you can shove it up your pretentious arses. Give me 10 Things I Hate About You. Give me Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. Give me The Lion King, or give me death. If you want to be sad or quirky or edgy or whatever you think reading a retelling makes you, read the original. I guarantee it'll be good. Classics are excellent. They are accessible, and you are capable of reading a classic. If you want to read something kind of current and topical and edgy and challenging in a new way, read something that is being written right now by a marginalised author. Go straight to the source. Read what you want to read. And finally, the section I am intending to end all these videos on, was it just me? Because I'm aware that was a vitriolic, bias-fueled spew of ideas, but maybe I need to step back and objectively assess whether it was my fault I hated this book. I didn't go into this book to hate it at all. What hurts the most is the fact that I really expected to adore it. I expected it to be a new favourite book. Like, I asked for this for Christmas in hardback from my mum, and bless her, she got the right edition, she got everything I wanted, and I hated the book. And like, I don't want to hate a present. I don't want to hate a gift. I appreciate the gift, the story. That was not a gift. It deals with memory and liminal spaces and monsters that might be real, and it's set on the water, and all these are things that I absolutely love in fiction. It was touted as this empowering queer retelling. I thought, I can put aside my biases about retellings because everything else is perfect. Everyone said it was lyrical prose, it was really linguistically impressive and powerful and something new and fresh, and had that depressive millennial ennui we've spoken about, but this should have been my jam. It was not my jam. I'll see you again soon. There will be more of these.